postgraduate from RP Center of Family Sciences, New Delhi, AIIMS. And is a trained cornea person. Is running in Navshakti Netralaya in Bangalore. He is the chairman scientific committee of the Karnataka Ophthalmological Society. A very keen teacher, very good orator, and an excellent surgeon. So we are going to hear phaco in operated keratoplasty eye, which again is a challenging situation for any cataract surgeon. So Dr. Elan.
Thank you, sir. At the outset, I would like to thank the scientific committee, AAOS, and Dr. Subhash Prasad, sir, for giving me this opportunity. We are going to talk about phacoemulsification in post-keratoplasty eyes. When we talk about keratoplasty eyes, I'll be concentrating more on this penetrating keratoplasty, and later I'll be talking just very briefly on the lamellar keratoplasties also. All of us know that nearly 25% of the patients who have undergone keratoplasty develop cataract in 5 years. The most common reasons for this is steroid use and intraoperative manipulation. But along with that, air tamponade, and remember, sometimes we do multiple surgeries, AC reformation or removing of a viscoelastic, sometimes removing of a suture gives way and we resuture that. So these are the reasons for causing the cataract. Also, inflammation, if it is more in the immediate postoperative period, such as in cases of therapeutic keratoplasty, there is more chance of developing the cataract. Now, always remember one thing, usually a cataract patient, young cataract patients, particularly after therapeutic keratoplasty, will present like this. The reason is these people ignore what is happening, and then they come back with a highly intumescent, narrow chamber. However, this is not the cases with optical keratoplasties, wherein we have given good results. So, number one, if the patient is young, how do we decide when to take up these patients? Age, inflammation, and other status is what we look at. If the patient is young, who requires good visual rehabilitation, these patients can be taken up earlier. Now also, how do we time this cataract surgery? Number one, is the vision reduced significant? Then yes, we have to operate. Now that reduction in vision, does it commensurate with the cataract? That is sorry, I'm getting some voice.
Hello.
Yeah.
हम दो बार किए हैं Zoom पे जाता है और हम सुन रहे हैं.
Rajesh sir, can you mute yourself?
Yes.
Thank you. Timing of the cataract surgery, so it depends both.
आपको हम जो भेजे थे मेल पे उसका खोल पाइएगा.
Sorry, please mute all others.
आपको जो भेजे थे हम फिर से ट्राई कर रहे हैं लेकिन.
So, okay, I'll go ahead. The timing of cataract surgery is very important. Also important is this IOL power calculation. Remember, we will not be getting good keratometric values. Also, it will be highly irregular. So IOL power calculation is very important. As we go ahead, we'll talk about that. Wound construction. Though it is always said that we have to create the opening in the host side. Many times the host side is weak, so we have to decide whether it is a bicorneal or a sclerocorneal incision. Also, how do we protect the corneal endothelium? Remember, these are not normal values. This will be around 1,500 or even lesser in case of therapeutic keratoplasty, and we have to look at post-operative management. Now, first thing to consider, corneal wound has to be stable, meaning at least 6 months should have been completed after the keratoplasty, except in cases of emergencies. And preferably, all the sutures should have been removed, and the keratometric values, that is the surface, should be stable at least for 2 different readings. Minimum 2 different readings, 3 months apart. If the topography is normal or the keratometric value is normal, then we can go ahead with it. Prefer to wait for 6 months if the cataract can wait. However, in intumescence cataract, it's better to go ahead as early as possible. Any other emergencies? Now, it all depends on the surgeon's preference and the patient expectation. The patient expects more, but it's the duty of the surgeon to explain. Now we have to look at the central 3 millimeters, the central area, to see whether that is stable, number one. Number two, whether it is regular. In case of a regular astigmatism, we can go ahead with the surgery. In case of an irregular astigmatism, if we remove all the sutures, to plan for 2-stage surgery, regularize it and then go ahead, probably with a laser or something, regularize it and then go ahead. As regards the preference of IOL, definitely most of us would like to prefer a normal monofocal IOL. However, considering the cylindrical power is very high, this may not work so good. Otherwise, we will require extra contact lens rehabilitation. Toric IOLs have been a boom. Nowadays, we are getting customized toric IOLs. I've used a maximum of 18 diopters on the corneal plane. That is also available. Preferred again is a hydrophobic acrylic lens. I need not have to go into that. And always it has to be done when there is a regular astigmatism, stable cornea, good endothelial count. And remember, despite all this, it's a double-edged sword. Incision, corneal is what we use in most cases if the cornea is stable enough, if it is strong enough to take the incision. Sometimes the host cornea is also affected, such as endothelial disorders. In those cases, we would prefer to do a scleral thing. Also, in ectatic grafts, we can go ahead with a sclerocorneal incision. Corneal incision, most of them needs to be sutured. Scleral incision need not be sutured. As regards corneal endothelial protection, a soft shell technique, in the back phacoemulsification with lower power, and nowadays we have torsional phacos, so using that and going ahead with a slow motion will help us. I'll just play a video and keep talking about it in between. Now, this is a case of post-PK. I think it's almost 3 months, and the cylindrical power is quite high, 7 diopters. So horizontal marking is made, and then we proceed with the incision. Toric IOL has been planned for this particular patient.
The video is not running.
Sorry, I'm able to see.
Video is not running.
Can you see it now?
No.
No, sir. Video is not running.
Can I stop share and reshare it?
Yeah, please.
Now can you see this?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Sorry, can you see it? Sorry.
Perfectly.
Okay, so good, we didn't miss out much. The horizontal mark is made. This particular lens had to be placed at 135 degrees. It is marked. And then we go ahead with the incision. In this case, using a corneal incision. Always I try to do the trapezoid. As regards chamber, this is quite an early cataract with a deep chamber. Remember, most of these keratoplasty eyes have a penetrating keratoplasty have a deep chamber. However, the chamber is shallow, that needs to be taken care of. Prefer to use a dispersive viscoelastic. If possible, a soft shell technique can be used, but what is more important, a dispersive to protect the endothelium, viscoat or something like that. 2 side ports as usual. The rest of the things, remember to make the capsulorhexis adequate size. When I say adequate size, many times after finishing the phacoemulsification in a post-keratoplasty eyes, if the rhexis is large enough, and considering that the scleral rigidity will be lesser in these repeat operated patients, the lens can just come and touch the surface. So if the rhexis is of adequate size, then no need to worry about it. Then go ahead with the time shortage. The rest of the phacoemulsification in the bag, slow motion. Here, of course, the longitudinal has been used. If torsional is available, that can be used. And then care is taken to deepen the chamber, inflate the bag, and then put in the lens and position it at its axis. Again, I repeat, toric lenses for only those patients where the surface is regular. If not, it's better to make the surface regular and then... Sorry, I have only 1 minute. In this case, it has been left without suturing because the cornea, you can see, is quite clear. Most keratoconus patients, it's quite good. But if it is a PBK or an ABK, then this cornea would be weak. It will definitely require suturing. I'll go back to my presentation now. Last 1 minute, I think. Share screen. Post-op care, very important in these cases. Look out for AC reaction and the endothelial status. It will be quite surprising. First 2 days might be normal, and later on the endothelium might start failing. So in these cases, we prefer to use aggressive steroids, preferably 2 hourly on the first day, and then reduce it to 8 times, 6 times a day instead of the routine 4-3-2-1 that we follow in routine phacoemulsification. Long-term steroids, even if it be soft steroids, it's required. And many of the times when we notice an AC reaction, we just try to increase the steroid dosage. However, we have to do it with care in cases of post-viral keratitis. It could be a reactivation of a herpes infection. So we have to be very careful in those cases. Acyclovir is required. Now, what should you do before? If there is significant, I'll just finish it in one sentence. Various studies are there. If cataract surgery is done after any of these procedures, then there is more endothelial loss. So if there is significant cataract at the outset, the keratoplasty can be combined with a cataract surgery at that stage itself, even if it is not so much visually debilitating. But in young patients, pediatric patients, it has to be retained. A lens has to be retained to maintain the accommodation. Just one last thing. This is the thing what I would like to say. In cases of deep lamellar keratoplasty, there is a chance that the posterior part, that the host endothelium might get sucked into the probe. Preferable to do stay away from the cornea and do only in the back phacoemulsification, slow motion phacoemulsification. Some people prefer SACS in those cases, but phacoemulsification can also be done. Once again, I thank for the opportunity. I thank Dr. Subhash Prasad sir and the scientific committee AAOS. Thank you.